Good evening, everyone, and welcome to HOPS Virtual Workshop number, 19, I think we're up to now. Whoever would have thought we'd have got this far on the subject of track safety. Do say hello in the comments, let us know what organisation you are watching from, and I'll say hello to you, and your railway name can be immortalised in the HOPS workshop forever. Hello to Gavin, first on this evening, Gavin from the Doon Valley Railway. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hello Alistair Irving, Phil Summers from the Epping Ongar. Phil, one of our regulars, thank you very much, Phil. Ruth from Weardale, thank you very much, Ruth. Hello, good evening. Andrew Watts, Phil McIver. I've got my two favourite Phils this evening, as always, Phil Summers, Phil McIver. Adrian from Chinner, thank you very much, Adrian, for tuning in. We'll just give everyone a minute or so to make sure everyone who has had the opportunity wants to join in. Hi, Adrian says. Hi, Adrian. Thank you very much for tuning in. Welcome then to workshop number 19, part 2 of track safety. If you remember, track safety is going to be done in 3 parts. We'll come to that in a moment. I'll just do a brief intro as I normally do on an SMS briefing, and then the lion's share of today, this evening, is going to be the delivery of a PTS briefing, which I hope you will all take part in and answer the silly questions as if you were receiving the PTS briefing, as well as comments or questions about what you think should be in it, how you do it differently. As always, I'll share the materials at the end of the workshop with advanced HOPS members, and you're welcome to pick them apart and do whatever you want with them afterwards. Hello, Graham from the Cryche Tramway. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching, say hello, and I'll say hello to you in the comments. So let's just do a very quick, I know you've probably all seen it before, but a very quick intro to the SMS workshop program and how things work. 2021 is HOPS' year of workshops on SMSs. We're storming through them. We've done quite a few, and I don't suppose we'll stop on the 9th of November. I imagine we'll carry on as more subjects get suggested for us to cover. So if you haven't already seen it, you can go to hops.org.uk/workshops, and you'll find a screen that looks exactly like that, and you can click on now the dates in the programme, and you'll see more details about each workshop. They're also on YouTube. They get uploaded to YouTube a few days after they've happened live on Facebook. So you can watch them back, watch them slowly, chop them apart, share them with your friends or other members of staff on the railway by sharing the YouTube link if you prefer. And finally, as I said, please do join in. This is much more valuable for you to be heckling me and throwing pieces of rotten fruit and saying that's good or that's bad. This is how we do it on our railway. Much more useful than just me sitting here reeling off a script. That's why we call it a workshop rather than a lecture. If you think your SMS processes on track safety and PTS are fairly good, then please share them with others. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, actually our PTS or track safety processes are not that good, then here's your opportunity to learn from others. The aim of the SMS workshop program is to construct a best practice set of SMS templates, which will hopefully save us all a bit of time, because otherwise we're all coming up with them independently and reaching normally pretty much the same conclusions. Save a bit of cost, because we're not wasting so much time, and share best practice. Give us all an opportunity to demonstrate that what we're implementing has been peer-reviewed by a collection of other railways. Just to confirm, as always, we are definitely not saying that this is what you must do, or at least in places where we are, we'll try and make that very clear that this is a part of ROGS or the Health and Safety at Work Act or whatever it is, where the vast majority of what I'm saying is just one way that we have found over the years of being involved in many different railways to be compliant. But it is not guaranteed to be suitable for every undertaking, and as always, it's your responsibility to make sure that what you take away from it mitigates the risks that you have, not just implementing it because you saw it on a HOPS video. Track safety is being done in 3 parts. 2 weeks ago, we did the brainstorm, mainly about protection, but we did the brainstorm, which is always how I start building SMS policies and SMS documents. I always start with the brainstorm in no particular order, just think of everything I can think of that I think needs to be in the policy somewhere and write it down, and then expand it into paragraphs and sort it into the right order. This week, Week 2 is going to be the PTS briefing, and then in 2 weeks' time from today, which I think is the 14th of September, we'll do the normal SMS document that is how all the previous workshops have done. But this one was so much material to include that I wanted to break it down into 3 parts. Some assumptions that have been made in this PTS briefing is that this is designed for lines up to 25 miles an hour. Certainly if you have a line that goes faster than 25 miles an hour, as some heritage railways do in special circumstances, parts of this will not be suitable, and you will definitely have to consider them more locally. And I'm also presuming that most heritage railways are single lines, except in the station areas. I know there are heritage railways that are double lines, particularly lines like the Great Central that have quite a long distance of double line. Again, different considerations are going to have to be made there, but given that probably 99%, if not more, of heritage railways in the UK are single lines, that's what I'm going to work on the basis of. So that's the intro to the SMS. When I post this video on YouTube, I'm going to chop it in half, and I'm going to chop the first bit off, the bit that I've just said, and publish that separately to what I'm now about to do, which is the PTS briefing. So as I said at the start, do feel free to shout out at any time, ask questions in the comments, either questions that you think might get asked if you were receiving this briefing as a PTS briefing, or questions that you want to ask relating to the policies and the principles and how it should be briefed. So here we go. Right, welcome to your personal track safety briefing. You'll notice the slides have taken on a new exciting format, and I'm trying my best to make it as interesting and not as bland as I possibly can for you. This will take about an hour to go through. We'll look at all the different aspects of being safe on the track for you as an individual, but not for the programming of work or the setting up of safety systems, which are all going to be different competencies. This is just the basic level to go onto the track as an individual, and safety systems and protection come separately to that. So first of all, let's look at why do we need PTS? Why do we need personal track safety at all? Seems a fairly good place to start. Okay, so there's a few good reasons why we need PTS. To enable those that go onto the track to be confident that they know what they need to know. Most human beings could probably look at a piece of railway line and say, oh, I could walk on that and I probably won't get hit by a train, and that's probably fair enough. I might not know everything, but I think I'm competent to walk in a straight line. I've been doing it all my life. But how do you know what you don't know until somebody tells you? So there will definitely be things, if you've never walked on the track before, that you don't yet know about how to remain safe on the track, or what the conventions are where there's more than one way to do something. And this is what PTS will tell you. And hopefully you'll come out of PTS at the end of the session confident that you know what you need to know. And confidence is just an important part of competence as competence itself. It also enables the company to discharge its safety responsibilities to you. You wouldn't be very impressed if the company started asking you to do things that you knew were unsafe. Well, the company has identified that asking you to go onto the track is something that carries an amount of risk, and therefore one of the mitigations for that risk is that we will train you properly in how to follow the processes and how to remain safe when you're on the track. Before training, you might not know what you don't know, but after training, you can gain confidence that you know all the requirements. And as I said, confidence is a really important part of discharging your responsibilities properly when you're on the track. PTS will help you and others to remain safe when you have to go on or near the line, or on the line side in connection with your duties. I've used 2 key words there, or 2 key phrases, on or near the line and on the line side. Don't worry, we will look at what the definition of those are. But the whole point of PTS and why we're here is ultimately to keep you safe. Few things that apply to all railway work, but we will mention them here, as we will at the beginning of many training sessions to do with alcohol and drugs. As with all railway work, you must not report for duty if you are unfit due to alcohol or drugs of abuse. Clearly, the risks to your diminishing ability to react promptly to a train approaching you, for example, when you're on the line, due to alcohol or drugs, could lead to disastrous consequences for you or for somebody else that you're working with. You must not consume alcohol or drugs of abuse while on duty. You must not be in possession of a drug of abuse while on the railway premises. All the standard normal stuff that you can find in the drugs and alcohol policy, which is posted at the booking on points and is available on your HOPS. So I said we'd look at some of these locations and what the names of them are. Let's look at those now. There's several names of many parts of the track formation, and we're going to go through them bit by bit. So first of all, in this diagram of the track, there's two tracks in the middle, and there's a yellow area and then a blue area on the outside. And the yellow area is called on or near the line. And it's everything that's up to 3 meters or 10 feet from the nearest running rail. So if you are standing within 3 meters or 10 feet of a railway track, you are on or near the line. And you should have more than just PTS in order to be there. We'll come on to a brief look at protection systems in a moment. The blue area on the diagram, the area outside the yellow area that's further away than 3 meters or 10 feet from the line, is called the line side. If you're in the blue area, you are on the line side. And the line side is everywhere outside 3 meters or 10 feet up to the boundary fence, with a couple of exceptions that we'll look at in a moment. So on or near the line and on the line side, and if you're on or near the line, you need some sort of protection system to be there. That's the danger area where you may become too close to a train in order for it to be unsafe. So as I just said, on or near the line, within 10 feet or 3 meters, that's where some sort of protection system is required. And I'm going to use the phrase protection system because every railway calls it something different. It could be a line blockage, or it could be a possession, or it could be an occupation, or it could be a blockage, or whatever it is that it is in your rulebook. But I'm just going to refer to it today as a protection system. It's got to be some sort of implemented system or process that provides you with protection from being run over by a train. And that could be just something verbal, some sort of agreement, some sort of signal protection, or it could be something that's actually interlocked in some way with the track or signalling system. But we're not going to concentrate on that because that is a different competence to PTS. PTS is just for you to go on the line and be on the line under some sort of protection system. There are a few exceptions, as I said, and you can see one of them in the drawing in the top left-hand side where there's a wall that is closer to 3 meters to the line, and clearly if you're on the other side of that wall, you're not going to get in any danger from passing trains. So you are not on or near the line or on the line side if there is a solid fence or structure between you and the line. Clearly you can see how that mitigates the risk that you might accidentally turn around or fall over and land on the railway track. That risk does not exist if there is a fence or solid structure between you and the track. You are in a building. Clearly, if you're inside a building, you're not going to accidentally land on the track. This is relevant because a moment ago I said the line side is anywhere further away than 3 meters and up to the boundary fence. And the boundary fence could include the ticket office, it could include the car park, and it could include all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So obviously if you're in the ticket office or in the car park, you're not on or near the line or on the line side. And in general, the definition is there'll either be a solid fence or structure between you and the line, or you're inside a building. You are on a platform and you are more than 4 feet or 1.25 meters from the edge. You are on a platform and you are more than 4 feet or 1.25 meters from the edge. If that's the case, you are not on or near the line or on the line side. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because we allow the public who don't have any PTS training at all to go onto platforms and be closer than 3 meters to the track. So how is it safe for them when suddenly it's not safe for us? Well, first of all, the public aren't working. They don't have the distraction of whatever the task there is that they're trying to do that could lead them to be distracted from the fact that a train is approaching. Secondly, staff on the platform are there for the purpose of supervising the public. The platform will have been risk assessed to ensure before the station even opens that it's safe for the public, and one of many mitigations will be that there's staff on duty, and if someone gets too close to the edge or falls over the edge, that member of staff can respond. But that member of staff won't be so carefully looking out for other members of staff, will they? There will definitely be a tendency for the human brain to go, well, that's another member of staff, they clearly know what they're doing, I'm going to concentrate on looking after the public. Even if that's not a conscious decision, it is likely to be a natural thing. But we also let the public go closer than 4 feet to the edge. There might be yellow lines or white lines or rippled edging along the end of the platform, depending on how recently constructed the platform was. But there's nothing to stop the public going closer than 4 feet. And again, this is due to the difference in the public's expectation of how they behave when they're on a platform compared to staff's expectation when they're on a platform. Generally, a member of the public on a platform is there for the purpose of catching the train or looking at the train. And when the train comes, they are possibly slightly less likely to be distracted from it than a member of staff that's doing work. Also, a member of staff that's doing work might be there all day and be conditioned to tuning out the background hurly-burly of the railway to the extent that they miss a train approaching. Whereas a member of the public on a station platform, hears the train whistle or hears the steam as it's approaching, everybody looks at the train, much less likely to not identify that there's a train approaching. And you are also not on or near the line or on the line side if you're on a public level crossing and, again, not carrying out work. If you're carrying out work, then you are on or near the line or on the line side, again, because of the propensity to become distracted. All the risks are still there, especially on level crossings that don't have like lifting barriers or closing level crossing gates, for example, where it's, again, not so obvious to you as a distracted worker on the crossing that a train is about to approach. So if you're not carrying out any work and you're on a public level crossing, then you do not need PTS and you are not on or near the line or on the line side. But if you are carrying out work, then you can clearly see that the risks do exist and therefore you do need PTS. When is the next question we will ask ourselves? When may we go into these locations, on or near the line or on the line side? Well, you may not go into either of them by default. The default position is don't go there. And that's because even though we all love steam railways and we all think it's terribly fun to work on them, if you think about how we manage safety on railways in general, in every other respect to do with safety, we make something safe and then we do the thing. We close all the doors and then we blow the whistle and wave the flag and let the train move. We set all the points and then we clear the signal. We don't clear the signal for the train to go and then quickly try and set all the points before the train gets there. It's always make the thing safe first and then allow the movement to take place. But on the line, it's the other way around, or in many cases at least, it's the other way around. Unless your protection system assures you there's no train approaching, you're going to go out and work on the line. The train is coming, come what may, and it's up to you to move out of the way of it. So it's on its head a little bit from how railway safety is normally managed. And if we detach ourselves momentarily from the enjoyment of steam railways, if I said to you, I want you to go and stand in the middle of an Amazon distribution centre with all those robots whizzing around the place, and the robots can't see you, if you're in the way, they're just going to mow you over, I'm sure you would say to me, I'm sorry, Danny, that's not safe. It's not part of my job. I'm not going to be doing that. And yet, we accept it so much more easily when it comes to standing on a steam railway line. So, remember that Amazon workshop with the robots? That's what it's like when you're on the railway line. The train is coming, come what may, and hopefully you will move out of the way of it. So we can mitigate that risk entirely by just not being on the line in the first place. We will only go on the line when it's absolutely necessary, and that will be when we are authorised to go there, when the job that we're doing as part of the railway authorises us to be on or near the line or on the line side, and not in any other circumstance. You are competent to go there. You have your PTS, it's in date, it's in HOPS, it's green, and if you need other competencies for the work that you're doing, either for the tools that you're using or because you're working alone or because you're leading a gang or any of those things, that you've got those competencies as well. And the onus to make sure that you are competent to do the jobs that you're going to do is as much on you as it is on the railway. It will be no defence for you after an incident where somebody's been injured to say, well, it's the railway's responsibility to keep me competent, because while that is true, it is your responsibility to maintain your competence and to know, and we're putting the onus on you here, to know that you have current competence before you go onto the line. If in doubt, do not go onto the line. Your duties make it necessary to go there. Necessary is the key word here. Your duties make it necessary to go there. Not your duties conveniently could be done by you having a walk down the railway line, but they make it necessary. There is no other way to achieve the duties that you need to achieve other than going onto the railway line. And there is no alternative, which is sort of what I just said. So a good example of an alternative is instead of crossing over the railway line, if there's a bridge, use the bridge. If there's a subway, use the subway. If there's an authorised walking route, use the authorised walking route. All of those things. Just because we can go on the line does not mean that we should. And In fact, just because we can does not even mean we can if there's an alternative to going there. Now, clearly, if we're going on the line to do some work that is on the line, there is no alternative and we will have to go on the line. But if it is ever possible to not go on the line, we should not go on the line. And it is a common sort of misunderstanding, I think, amongst volunteers who work on heritage railways, that because it's a heritage railway and it's great fun and we do it at the weekends, which is all true, that suddenly we can just walk all over the line because this is the fun part of working on a heritage railway. Well, unfortunately, if that is the case, you're exposing the organisation that you volunteer for and that you purport to support to a lot of unnecessary risk. Right, where next? You should use bridges, subways or crossings if this will avoid or reduce the need for you to go on or near the line or on the line side. So, in addition to all those things that we just said that mean you must not go on or near the line or on the line side, slightly more narrowly, you must not go on or near the line unless you have a protection system. Whatever that protection system is, and as we said, it could be called a line blockage or a lookout or a possession or any of those sorts of things, but you must have something. And you need to be able to demonstrate, both as individuals and the railway as your employer, what is your protection system? What is the thing that is going to stop you getting run over by a train? If you can't answer that question, stop and get off the line, because the chances are you are in a position of risk where something bad is going to happen. So I'll just go back a slide. You must not go on or near the line or on the line side unless all of those things are met. And to go forward a slide again, and if you go on or near the line, you must have some sort of protection, some sort of official rulebook, procedure, SMS, something official. That means you're protected from the approach of trains. Right, okay, let's move on. Let's look at some more location names around the railway. So we talked about on or near the line, everywhere up to 3 metres from the track. And Adrian has just made an interesting comment. Have I made a typo? You must not go on or near the line unless, yes, Adrian, it should say that. Well done. You must not go on or near the line unless you have a protection system in place. Well spotted. So we talked about on or near the line and on the line side, 2 ways of identifying places on the line. We're now going to look at some more. This is a profile view of the track. It's drawn expertly. There's the sleepers in the middle, 2 tracks and 2 pointy rails, and then the orange embankment on either side. And I'm sure you will know some of these. We'll just put on or near the line on there before we start. So that's everything up to 10 feet or 3 meters from the rail. So you can see how wide that goes. And there's on the line side up to the boundary fences. And on the left-hand side, you can see quite a wide on the line side to a boundary fence that's quite far out up the embankment. And on the right-hand side, quite a narrow on the line side to a boundary fence that's slightly further down the embankment. But there are some other names, and these other names are ones that you will more commonly hear used in practice when you're out on the track. So first of all, the location between the rails of a track is called the forefoot. The forefoot, and it's deliberately in inverted commas there because it's called the forefoot, but is it exactly 4 feet? I'm not going to wait 20 seconds for the live broadcast to go out to hear what your answer is, but hopefully you're all shouting at the screen, no, Danny, no, it is not 4 feet. What is it exactly? Yes, it's 4 feet, 8.5 inches, exactly. It's just called the forefoot. It is not exactly 4 feet wide. Anywhere where you're between the rails of the same track, you are in the forefoot. And if somebody says to you, don't stand in the forefoot, then you know that's not the place to stand. And if they say the defect or the tool or whatever it is in the forefoot, then you know exactly where the forefoot is. Clearly, if there's only one track, there'll only be one forefoot, and if it's 6 tracks wide, then there'll be 6 forefoots. There'll be a 6 foot on the up main, a 6 foot on the down main. Sorry, I've got this wrong. If it's 6 tracks wide, there'll be 6 forefoot. There'll be a 4 foot on the up main, a 4 foot on the down main, a 4 foot in the loop, a 4 foot in the siding. Every line will have a 4 foot. The location between the tracks is called the 6 foot. Again, it's inverted commas. Is it always exactly 6 feet? No, I hear you cry. No, it's not exactly 6 feet. It's just called the 6 foot. Sometimes the 6 foot is very narrow, and it's certainly not safe to be standing there when trains are whizzing past. Sometimes the 6 foot is extremely wide, and there is what we will come to learn is called a position of safety between the 2 tracks. Particularly heritage railways that were broad gauge when they were opened and then converted to what's now standard gauge, often between platforms have a very, very wide 6 foot, and you can see this on the main line as well. It has just been pointed out to me in the comments that a 4 foot is only 4 feet 8.5 inches if you're a standard gauge railway. If you're a 2 foot gauge railway, then your 4 foot is actually 2 feet. And if you're a 7.25 inch railway, then your 4 foot is actually 7.25 inches. Now, you might find that different words get used, but hopefully they don't overlap with other conventionally accepted words. And to be honest, I can't think of any other words that they could overlap with because nobody has a actual railway gauge that is 6 feet wide. But even if you're only a 7.25 inch railway, Tom Bailey from the Etchelswood Railway, the bit between the rails, even though it's only 7.25 inches wide, is still called the 4 foot. And finally, on the edges there, the sort of drainage bit between the ballast shoulder and where the grass embankment starts is called the cess, as in drainage cess. That's where hopefully the water drains to, and obviously drainage is a very important part of maintaining the proper track geometry, and the bit on the edges is called the cess. Sometimes it's not 100% clear where the cess starts and ends. Some cesses are very well maintained, some are very poorly maintained. Sometimes the grass comes all the way up to the sleeper ends. Cess is a little bit of a theoretical term rather than something that's a fixed distance wide or is made of a certain surface. Right, so I know that this will be a bit difficult because this is a live broadcast, but you can tell me now as if you were in the room and you can point to your screen. I expect on the secret cameras to be able to see you pointing at your laptop screen. Where is the 4 foot on this image? Where is the 4 foot? You point it out on your screen and I'll know whether you're doing it. I'll know whether you're right or wrong. And when you've identified where the 4 foot is, if you're feeling really clever, you can also identify where the 6 foot is and where the cess is. And I've deliberately picked a picture that's not 100% clear, that there's a bit of discussion to be had here over where the 4 foot is and where the 6 foot is. But I think hopefully, my sensors have detected that you're all pointing at the screen, so that's good. So there's the 4 foot in the middle, exactly where you expected. There's 2 6 foots, one on either side, because there's 3 tracks here, and there'll be a 6 foot between every set of tracks. But there's more than this, isn't there? You can see, for example, there's another 4 foot over there, and I haven't drawn it on, but there's another 4 foot on the right-hand side where the wagon and that, what is that, an NKV or something like that, where that maroon carriage is parked. Between the rails of every track is a 4 foot. Between every track is a 6 foot. You might hear the 10 foot referred to between pairs of tracks. I don't think any railway has got enough, any heritage railway, has got enough tracks to make a 10 foot, so I'm not going to talk about the 10 foot. Where's the cess? There's the cess all the way over there by the signal box. And of course, if you're really clever, there will also be another cess on the right-hand side hiding somewhere behind those wagons. Did you get it right? I hope you did. Let's move on. It's really difficult to do this without a room full of people. Right, okay, so we've talked about track safety, personal track safety, we've talked about the fact that it enables us on its own to go on the line side, but not on or near the line without some sort of protection system that will be worked out by somebody with more competence than us, and we will be told what it is. But we still need to know how to protect ourselves and key things that we do no matter what protection system we're working under. And the first and possibly most important is where a position of safety is. Where is a position of safety? And just remembering that assumption of this whole presentation is this lines up to 25 miles an hour. A position of safety will be 4 feet or 1.25 meters away from the track. So 4 feet or 1.25 meters. Now, no train overhangs by 4 feet over the side. So why on earth do we need to be 4 feet or 1.25 meters away from the track? Well, let's not forget that trains, even at 25 miles an hour, can cause a bit of turbulence if they swoosh past, and if they catch your high-vis jacket that's not done up properly, like in the photo, there's a risk of your clothing or your tools or whatever getting caught on the train as it goes past if you're too close. It's also possible, of course, for a door on a slam door train to be open, although hopefully rare, and if you were standing closer than 4 feet, you might get whopped in the back of the head with it. So 4 feet is the minimum distance that we will stay away from the track when we need to go into a position of safety. And 4 feet is not difficult, and 4 feet is not necessarily comfortable. And certainly, if I'm on the track and a train approaches, I do not get my tape measure out and go, oh no, actually that's 5 feet away from the track. You better move a bit closer because you're only allowed to be 4 feet away. I move as far away from the track as is reasonable and sensible. I do not go, oh, that's 4 feet, so I'll stand here. Let's agree that when a train approaches, the minimum for the position of safety is 4 feet or 1.25 meters. We will move further away as it is sensible to do so when a train approaches. So just to confirm then, the definition, a position of safety is a place allowing a minimum clearance of at least 4 feet, 1.25 meters, between you, including anything that you're wearing or carrying, and the nearest rail of any line on which a train may be approaching. And there's quite a few key words in here. First one we've already looked at, which is the word minimum. It is the minimum distance, not the absolute distance. Second key phrase is anything you may be wearing or carrying, and that is particularly relevant if you're carrying something big or you've got a pickaxe over your shoulder or you're carrying a ladder, for example. We don't want any, Laurel and Hardy type, you swing round with the ladder just as the train approaches and the ladder gets caught on the front of the train or anything like that. So complete 4-foot exclusion zone between you, including anything you're wearing and carrying, and the track. And it's the nearest rail of any line on which a train may be approaching. Now, if it's a single line and you can see a train coming towards you, you can be pretty certain that the train is on the single line. But if there's more than one line, or you're in a station area and the lines fan out and there's a main and a loop and a siding and another siding and all sorts of other things, move clear of them all, because you do not know which line the train is approaching on. You might think you've got a pretty good idea, and it might be a passenger train and there's only one platform, so you're pretty certain the passenger train is going to go in the passenger platform, but you don't know that somebody hasn't made a mistake, you don't know that some emergency isn't in progress, you do not know for certain which line the train is going to approach on. And it has definitely happened in the past on the main line where an assumption has been made. Ruscombe, for example, if you look up the accident at Ruscombe about 10 years ago, where an assumption has been made on which line the train is going to approach on. It was the incorrect assumption and an accident happened. So we will move clear of all the lines on which the train may be approaching. There's another reason why we move clear of all the lines, and that's because while our attention is grabbed by one train approaching, and it is natural to watch it because we like steam engines and see how quickly it's going and watch it as it gets closer, that we are distracted from another train, a second train approaching on a different line, especially in a station area. So we will move clear of all the lines on which a train may be approaching. And we will be in that position for a minimum of 10 seconds. Absolute minimum. Absolute minimum. If you can't be in a position of safety for at least 10 seconds, do not do the work. Because it is just not worth it, is it? Seriously, it is not worth the risk, especially on a heritage railway where it's not like 1,000 people are going to be late for work if a train gets delayed this morning. If you cannot work in such a way that you can be in a position of safety for a minimum of 10 seconds, the company does not want you to work there. It's really important. Oh, okay, yes, we're also in a position of safety if there is a solid structural fence between us and the line, and if there is, then we're not on or near the line or on the line side, or you're inside a building, or you're on a platform and at least 4 feet or 1.25 meters from the edge. They are all positions of safety by extension, because we're not on or near the line if we're in those places. Right, a couple of other little things that we might find then as we are walking about on the railway line. So we will come back to our definition of position of safety and see how we use it in a moment, but we're just going to go off on a little tangent now and look at some other little signs and signals and indicators and things while we're walking along the railway line. So the first one is this, the warning limited clearance sign. You might hear it referred to as Battenberg because it looks a bit like a Battenberg. There's an example of one on a location case, and this means that there is no position of safety in front of this structure. So if you stand in front of it, you are not in a position of safety. So if you encounter one of these signs as you're walking along the line, you've got to look at the structure and go, right, well, based on the sighting that I've got, and the speed that trains go, can I get past this structure and onto the other side of it so that I'm in a position of safety and be in the position of safety for at least 10 seconds before a train could possibly arrive? And if I can, then it's okay to walk past it. And if I can't, then it's not okay to walk past it, unless, of course, our protection system gives us some other protection, like it assures us in some way that a train is not going to approach. So we will only pass the structure if we can be in a position of safety on the other side for at least 10 seconds, or your protection system otherwise allows. If your protection system assures you that no train is going to approach, then you know that no train is going to approach. Another little sign, similar but blue and white, warning no refuges, which you might find on tunnels or bridge parapets. And this means there are no refuges where you might normally expect them to be. So you know the little cutouts in the tunnel walls, where a good number of decades ago people would stand in there as the train whizzed by. Not something that we really want to accept on a heritage railway if we're honest, but you might nevertheless still find this sign to warn you that there are no refuges. But you should certainly not take the absence of a sign as a guarantee that there are refuges. You should work to your protection system. In most cases, if there is a tunnel or a significant bridge structure along your railway, it will be specifically mentioned in the protection systems. And most railways, which I think is a good idea, and I would recommend, if you have a tunnel that is longer than you can see through and have sufficient visibility out the other side in order to be in a position of safety out on the other side for 10 seconds before a train approaches, then you are just not allowed to walk through it unless your protection system assures you there are going to be no trains. Right, so just to recap, we talked about on or near the line or on the line side. We talked about a position of safety. So on the top of the drawing, you can see on or near the line or on the line side. And on the bottom of the drawing, you can see in the middle it's not a position of safety. And on the outside, it is a position of safety. But, I hear you say, that leaves this orange area in the middle where we are in a position of safety, but we're still on or near the line. So how does that work? Well, yes, that is exactly true. But don't forget, there's a difference here. On or near the line is where you need a protection system. Position of safety is where you need to stand as a minimum when a train comes by. And if you're making a conscious effort to stand in a position of safety, even if you're still on or near the line, even if you're closer than 10 feet, if you're between 4 feet and 10 feet, from the line, you're taking that action consciously. You're standing in a position of safety consciously so that, and you're looking at the train approaching, you know what's happening, you're not likely, or you're less likely, let's say, to make the mistake of stepping forward onto the line or turning around and accidentally getting too close to the line. If you're working in that orange area, you still need to stop and stand up and acknowledge the warning, as we'll find out in a second, and change from being in work mode to being in position of safety mode when a train is approaching. So there is, let's say, a little bit of confusion here because the measurements aren't the same. It is possible to be on or near the line and in a position of safety, but if you're working in that area, then you must be conscious of when you're working and when you're notably in a position of safety. So just to confirm, protection is required when you're on or near the line, which is anything less than 10 feet or 3 meters from the nearest running rail. That's when a protection system is required. And PTS is required anywhere between the boundary fences. Because remember how we started this? We said before you've had the training, you don't know what you don't know. And how would you know not to go on or near the line if you were working on the line side unless you'd had this PTS training? So PTS required anywhere between the boundary fences. Obviously not in a building, not if there's a solid structure between you and the line, not if you're in the ticket office, all those things, because they're not on the line side or on or near the line. And protection system required when you're on or near the line. Protection system, some formal process, some formal thing that describes how you're not going to get injured by an approaching train. Right, let's look at some other parts of PTS then. High-vis clothing. You either love it or hate it, but it is here, high-vis clothing. First thing is, high-vis clothing is your backup protection. It is not in any protection system the one and only means by which you're going to be safe. There will always be better means than you just being seen on the track with your high-vis clothing on. It is the backup, it's the fallback, it should never be the primary means of protection. If the primary means of protection fails, no matter what that is, whether it's some sort of system that will stop trains approaching and it fails and a train approaches, or whether it's you've got a lookout and the lookout's supposed to see the train and they fail to see the train, the backup is that you're wearing orange, the driver of the train sees you, they whistle, you hear it, and then move out the way. That's like a 3-step backwards and forwards process to get you into a position of safety. And that's why it's not the primary means of protection. It's the safety net. It will be orange. Yes, I know there's been some controversy this week about orange clothing, but it is definitely going to be orange, and I don't have any problem with that. It will have reflective stripes on it if we're working at night. I think it's pretty difficult to get high-vis clothing without reflective stripes on it nowadays, but certainly if we're working at night, or let's say any time that's not sunshiny daylight, so that could be during a particularly cloudy, murky, rainy day, even if it's in the daytime, we will have reflective stripes. I think I might change the presentation to say reflective stripes at any time that isn't clear visibility. In general, a mini vest is sufficient on a walking route, like the chap in the middle on this photograph is wearing, and he's wearing a nice heritage one with the big rubber buttons on, which is absolutely fine. Mini vest on a walking route. We'll come to look at walking routes in a second, but they're positioned where you're not in as immediate danger from approaching trains. The risk is less, so the mitigation can be less, so a mini vest is sufficient. Otherwise, a full vest done up at the front, and it must be done up at the front. Come on, not only does it look unprofessional if you have it undone, flapping around all over the place, but it makes it very easy for the front of your body, the front of your torso, to have only very minimal orange on it, and really does make you much more difficult to see. So done up at the front is the professional way. Trousers in foul weather, because as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, PPE is not just about visibility. In some cases, it can be about keeping people warm or dry. And so trousers are definitely an appropriate thing in foul weather. And also in foul weather, you are more difficult to see from the point of view of a driver. And so more surface area of orange helps that backup safety net of you wearing orange clothing. Now, I do recognise that we are heritage railways, and people wearing top to toe orange everywhere doesn't always look good. So we have to balance, don't we? We have to balance. I'm not suggesting that station masters ditch their lovely hats and blazers and a flower in the lapel and put on a massive orange jacket. Not suggesting that at all. We can, and lots of railways very successfully do, balance where we need to wear orange high-vis clothing to mitigate obvious risks and where we don't. So on platforms, for example, most heritage railways have a do not wear your orange clothing on the platform unless you're within 4 feet of the edge and doing some sort of work rule. Most heritage railways have various exemptions. So, for example, locomotive crew looking round their engine, or signalmen carrying out token duties are 2 specific ones that I see a fair amount that you can justify, because a driver is expecting to see a signalman waiting to collect the token. The signalman is used to doing that job and has an official place to stand. You can justify that the risks are slightly less and just about get away with saying, okay, we will obviously properly formally record a risk assessment to that extent to say that we don't expect high-vis clothing to be worn in those circumstances. I'd like to very much underline here part of what I said at the beginning of the workshop, that it is up to you to make sure that what you implement matches your risks. And it must be clean. It must be clean high-vis. There is no point whatsoever in wearing it if it's not clean. And I know, again, that it's a thing to take the mickey out of somebody that's got a clean orange high-vis, but actually the person with the clean orange high-vis is much more professional than the person taking the mick out of them. It doesn't show that you've done a lot more hard work because you've got a dirty high-vis. If you've got a clean high-vis, it shows that you care about your equipment and that you take safety seriously and that you take your responsibility to the railway seriously and that you don't want to land the railway in trouble, rather than just thinking how clever it is and how much it looks like you've done a lot of hard work because your high-vis is covered in oil and horrible stuff. Don't fall into that trap. Professional is clean. If we're going to wear a rucksack, we won't wear it over the top of our high-vis. We'll either wear it underneath or we'll get an orange rucksack. You can definitely get high-vis orange rucksacks with the stripes on and everything. But I've lost count of the number of times that I've seen somebody diligently put a high-vis vest on and then put a black rucksack over the top. Totally silly. Don't do it. And the other thing that we'll avoid, which doesn't relate to high-vis clothing but relates to clothing in general, is red or green clothing. Red or green clothing that could be misinterpreted as hand signals or flags or all those sorts of things. We'll try and avoid, if we can, red and green clothing when we're working on the railway line. And we will definitely avoid the Sean Lock low visibility jacket that he wore on Countdown. And I put this picture in the workshop we did 2 weeks ago, and then the next day he died, so I felt a bit guilty. But that's the Sean Lock low visibility jacket, which is what your high vis will look like if you let it get covered in oil and don't look after it properly. Right, we will also be conscious when we're working around on the railway line of things that we can slip on or trip over. Slips and trips are one of the highest, numerically, one of the highest causes of safety accidents on heritage railways. So what things can you see in the pictures that are on the screen now that you can trip over or slip on? And yes, I want you to answer this, even though I'm never going to know whether you have or not, but you can say to yourself or think to yourself now, what on earth is going on in those pictures that I could slip on or trip over? Well, first of all, on the left-hand side, as I'm sure you gathered, there's a bell crank there, which is where a signal wire attaches to so that the tension can be translated from one direction to another. First of all, you can trip over the bell crank. Second of all, you can trip over the trip wires. And if you notice, they're very cleverly grey against a grey background of ballast to make them difficult to see. And for most of the time, they're in tension. So it's perfect to trip over. So beware and be conscious of where the signal wire runs are, and beware and be conscious of other equipment that they visit along their way to the signal. In the right-hand picture, we can see there's all sorts of things. There's pulley wheels on the left-hand side. There's point rodding there down the sleeper ends, stretcher bars between the rails, and crucially, point blades themselves, which are going to move from side to side. This must be a set of points in a siding because it doesn't have a facing point lock on it, or I guess it could be a trailing set of points on a main line, but either way, some set of points have extra angular equipment in the forefoot, and of course we all know where the forefoot is, it's on the right-hand side there. And all of this equipment can move. It can all move without warning when the signalman wants to operate it. In order to allow trains to move around, it will just move. And if you're too close to it, you might well find yourself trapped by it or have your foot crushed by it. And if you consider, put yourself in the position of the signalman in the signal box, who's got a big lever with which to move these point blades from side to side, and the point blades are really heavy. So the lever gives the signalman a lot of mechanical advantage. The signal lever is about 6 foot tall, quite a lot of it's under the floor, but you've got about 6 foot tall lever against about a 12 to 18 inch arm on the other end. So he's got probably 4, if not 6 times mechanical advantage when he operates that lever over the point blades. And he heaves the point blades across using all his elbow grease on the lever, and hopefully they go all the way across. But if they don't go all the way across because your foot or your fingers or whatever it is trapped in them, what do you think the signalman's going to do? He's going to put it back and give it some real welly and really try and put lots of momentum into the lever, lots of force onto the lever to try and get the blades to go all the way across. Because they're big and heavy and they don't always go across first time, and it's nothing unusual if they don't. So if you are trapped between them, you can expect the signalman to really try as hard as he possibly can to crush you, whatever you've got trapped in between the blades when they move. So we will keep entirely away from movable parts of points equipment. We won't walk down the forefoot between the rails through a set of points where there's all sorts of moving parts, especially if there's a facing point lock. If necessary, we will step out of wherever we are, walk along the gravel path here if it's safe to do so, and then come back in after we've gone past the points. If we really need to walk along the forefoot due to the job that we're doing, that is. But just beware, all of the stuff can move, all of it you can trip over, all of it you can slip on, and a lot of it moves without warning. Oh, we didn't talk about slips. Sorry, I beg your pardon, we didn't talk about slips. When we're walking, we will always try our best. If we have to walk on the ballast, if there's no path or walking route for us to walk on, we will try to step on the ballast. Not on the sleepers, and definitely not on the tops of the rails, and definitely not across the tops of the point rodding or anything like that. All that's nice and very slippery, especially if it's been raining. the ballast, even though it's the most difficult place to walk, is the firmest place to walk with the least risk of slips. Right, there's some bullet points. So we will remember to wear our protective footwear. Always protective footwear where we're on the track. Exactly what type of protective footwear will depend on the task that you're doing. It'll be listed in the risk assessment for the task that you're doing. In most cases, it'll be boots. Occasionally, it might be shoes. It'll always be steel toe caps. We will watch out for obstructions, such as signal wires. Excuse me. We will watch out for slippery underfoot conditions, and we will be aware that sleepers can be very slippery when they're wet. We will step over and not on the rails, and not between point blades. They may move without warning. We will not walk on the line side, or on the line at all if there is a reasonable alternative. We know that anyway. And we will always choose the least worst place to walk. And I deliberately say least worst place because there's never really a best place. If you're on the line, you're already in a pretty risky position. We will choose the least worst place to walk. That might be in the forefoot. It might be in the cess. It might be in the 6 foot, or it might be on the line side. And 1,000,001 different factors will come into play when you make a conscious decision as to where you're going to walk. Don't walk in a place just because the person in front of you walks there. Don't walk in a place because you always do it. Don't walk in a place because it looks like it's the easiest. Make a conscious decision. And if I should land in my helicopter in front of you when you're walking along the line, I expect to be able to say to you, you're walking in such and such a place. Tell me the rationale for why you were walking there. And I expect you to be able to say, I considered walking there and I discounted that because of this, and I considered walking there and I discounted that because of the other. This is the least worst place to walk because of X, Y, and Z. Not just, I didn't really think about it, or I always do it, or he told me to do it, or anything like that. You have to make a conscious decision, and then you will be able to back it up afterwards. Right, here's another little photo that shows some things that are good to trip over. Again, more point rodding there close to the camera, and some signal wires even closer. All slightly different heights, slightly different tensions, all designed to catch out the unwary. Right, here's a photograph of a path down the side of the track. And this, if it is an official path, might be called an authorised walking route. I'm not saying that all paths are authorised walking routes, but there will be an official list somewhere in the documentation surrounding your SMS or rulebook or local instructions, a list of which paths are authorised walking routes. And an authorised walking route is a tool provided for your safety. And just like all tools that are provided for your safety, you must use them if you can. If you can't, because of the task that you're doing requires you to be somewhere else, then obviously that's absolutely fine. But if we have provided you with an authorised walking route, a tool for your safety, then we expect you to use it, unless, of course, you can justify that the task you're doing means you can't. Authorised walking routes will be listed in some sort of local document. So ask yourself now, what is our or what is your local document? If you're watching this now thinking, oh my God, we don't have a local document, then get a local document. Because if you're not specifying where the authorised walking routes are, how on earth is anyone else supposed to know? Just because there's a well-trodden path there might not mean that the path was put there because it's a tool for safety. It might just be a well-trodden path, and people might accidentally use it believing it's an authorised walking route. So authorised walking routes can only be authorised if they're authorised somewhere in some sort of local document. And in connection with authorised walking routes, we will only use authorised or approved points of access. So you can see there's a nice gate in light and dark stone there on the right-hand side. Somewhere, possibly even in the same document as your authorised walking routes, you will find a list of approved points of access. We will not climb over fences, we will not trespass on other people's land, we will not do any of those other things in order to get onto the line. We will use the official points of access provided for the purpose. Some railways, incidentally, I've just thought, have the authorised walking routes and approved points of access on the map, on like the track map of all the layout of the track and points and signals and where all the bridges and tunnels are, and they just put a little triangle to say, here's an access gate, this is an approved point of access. So, we've gone off on many little tangents there. Let's come back to where we are now. Walking on the line, and I've deliberately put walking rather than working, because when we get to the stage of doing working, if it's on or near the line, we'll have to have some sort of protection system. We're walking on the line. We now know about positions of safety, limited clearance, no refuges. We know about all those things, and we're going to remain nice and safe along the line. Yes. We will not rely on signals being at danger as an assurance that no train is going to approach. We will not rely on signals being at danger as an assurance that no train is going to approach. That is not a protection system. And why is this? Because trains can pass signals at danger, either accidentally or deliberately, and it'll be no defence to you in your hospital bed to say, well, the driver should have stopped at the signal, he spatted the signal, it's his fault. Well, that may as well be, but you're still going to be the one in hospital, or worse still, somebody who you're working with is going to be the person in hospital. Signals can be out of use or out of order, in which case the train might have some sort of routine authority to pass them. Signals can be passed at danger by trains in possessions. Again, you might or might not be involved in that possession protection system. It's certainly possible to have overlapping protection systems. And so the signal might not have the same meaning when it's in the danger position as you think it does to trains that are working in the possession. And finally, having made our assumption that many lines are single lines, and I bet on most heritage railways, even in station areas where there's more than one line, many of them are bi-directional, trains might just approach from the other direction, the direction to which the signal does not apply. And therefore, again, your assumption that no train is going to approach just because you can happen to see a signal at danger might well be wrong. We will not do or use or wear anything that may affect us seeing or hearing an approaching train. Because remember, these are going to be the protection systems, not high-vis and driver's whistles and all those sorts of things. It's going to be that we need to see or hear an approaching train. Sorry, it's primarily that we're going to see it or that somebody else is going to see it and tell us about it in various different protection systems, and hearing is the backup. Hearing is the backup, hearing the train whistle. So think now, and in fact, since there are quite a few of these, let's have some comments in the comments. I know it'll take 20 seconds or so for them to come through, of things that you can think of that we should probably not do, use or wear that may affect us seeing or hearing an approaching train. I'd like at least 25, no, maybe not, half a dozen things. Oh, there's quite a lot of comments going on about route maps, so thank you very much for that. And in fact, this started by Ryan saying the SDR has an amazing route map. Well, thank you, Ryan. Ryan knows that it was drawn by me, so thanks, Ryan, for that. I will take an action out of this to ask the SDR whether they mind if a potentially redacted version of their route map is shared with those who's asked for it. And if they say yes, then I'll upload it with the output documents from this workshop. So I'd really like to see, brilliant, some comments, excellent. So Richie Jones has said hoodies. Yep, absolutely, hoodies, thank you very much. Hoodies is an example of something that we could wear that may affect us seeing or hearing an approaching train. Now, I'm not saying hoodies completely outlawed. Some things are going to be completely outlawed and some things aren't. I'm not going to say hoodies are completely outlawed. It may well be that given the weather conditions, for example, and this applies to a normal hood as well as a hoodie, it may well be that the weather conditions are so absolutely terrible and they're affecting your ability to see or hear approaching trains so much that having your hood up might be a net positive result. Obviously, if it's going to completely muffle over your ears so you can't hear a train approaching at all, that's no good. But it may be that having your hood up makes you less prone to missing, seeing or hearing an approaching train. So you'll have to make a decision based on the circumstances. Balaclava, excellent. Balaclava, same sort of thing applies. You can get railway balaclavas that go round your ears and your ears aren't in the balaclava. And if you can't find one on eBay, then you can get your grandma to knit you one. Balaclavas do tend to hug the ears quite closely, so I would suggest a balaclava is probably not something to be worn on the line side. What else have we got here? Headphones from Graham from the Christ Tramway. Yes, headphones definitely outlawed. In terms of music headphones, that is. Ear defenders, slightly different. We'll come to ear defenders in a minute. If you see somebody walking down the line side listening to music in their little headphone things, then you've got my permission to get a pair of scissors and cut the wires to their headphones. Tom Bailey, sunglasses, excellent, sunglasses. Now, sunglasses not completely outlawed. Again, there's something where you've got to consider, is it better to wear them or better not to wear them? If the sun is absolutely blazing and it's a low winter sun in the sky and it's exactly lining up with where trains are going to approach from, then it's probably a good idea to wear some sunglasses, because they will help you not get dazzled by the sun and therefore protect your ability to see or hear approaching trains. Of course, if you feel that with the sunglasses on, you're still diminished in your ability to see trains approaching, then you will have to stop work altogether because you can't achieve safety. But if you're just wearing sunglasses to look cool, then obviously that's silly and you're going to be diminishing your ability to see trains approaching for the sake of looking cool. You've got my permission to take those sunglasses off that person's face. And in fact, Graham has pointed out, I would disagree with sunglasses as they can help with visibility if you have light issues. Yep, exactly. So I'm not saying any of these things are completely banned. I'm not saying any of them are absolutely perfect. They're all things to be considered that in the right or wrong circumstances could affect your ability to see or hear approaching trains. Ear defenders by Phil McIver, thank you very much. Yes, ear defenders will definitely affect your ability to see or hear an approaching train. Your protection system, whatever that may be, needs to take that into account. So you'll be familiar with lookouts. We're not going to talk about lookouts today, but lookout is a person who looks out for trains and then warns the gang. So if you're wearing ear defenders, a touch lookout who taps you on the shoulder when a train is approaching is the sort of most likely mitigation for that risk of needing to wear ear defenders to protect your safety in one respect, for not being deafened by the machinery, without exposing you to unacceptable levels of risk from trains approaching. Right, what else have we got here? Mobile phone. Brilliant, mobile phone. You've obviously seen what the next slide is. Mobile phone. Not saying mobile phones completely outlawed on the track. They're very useful for reporting defects, reporting emergencies, mitigating lone working risk, that sort of thing. But using the mobile phone to make a phone call when you're on or near the line, not a good idea. Let's go into a position of safety. We'll talk about mobile phones in a second. And well done, everybody. That's all the comments. There's lots of duplicates there, but well done for taking part. So here is a nice photo of somebody on the track, and I will point out that this is posed with a proper protection system in place as well, I hasten to add, for the purpose of my demonstration. So all the things that we can see, I think, are things that are, or most of them are things that we've already spoken about. The umbrella. Now, I know you might think that we set this up to be silly, but if you look at an accident that occurred at Reading New Junction, again, about 10 years ago, I'm pretty certain that you'll find it was raining heavily, the person was hunched under an umbrella. They heard the train approaching but thought it was on a different line, and so they didn't move to a position of safety and they got knocked over by the train. Forgive me if any of those details are slightly incorrect, I can't fully remember, but that was the gist of it. Umbrella, definitely banned. If it is raining so hard that you feel you need an umbrella, then you can't do that work. Now, that's not to say that some tools that you use or equipment and location cabinets and things that you open might not have tents over them because you don't want to get rain in them. That's very different to a person walking along with an umbrella. I think actually I've got notes on this. Yes, I have. Umbrella, bullet points, brilliant. No high vis. This person who has taken the rule that they must have a high vis when they're on the track, but is refusing to wear it and has just sort of put it in their pocket as an excuse to say, well, the driver can see it when it's hanging out of my pocket. No, put it on so that it's covering your entire back. Let's be professional about this and not try and look for ways to not follow the rules just because we don't like them, because if we don't do that, we soon won't have a railway. The person is on their mobile phone, standing in the forefoot. Now, to be fair, their protection system might have given them the assurance that absolutely no train will approach. They could be in a line blockage or a possession or whatever you want to call it, and therefore they could have other mitigations in place if they're making a necessary phone call from the forefoot. However, moving to the line side rather than on or near the line would definitely be preferable. And even if not for the reason that a train might approach, is that you're a lot less likely to slip over. You're a lot less likely to trip on the rail. I certainly do it. I suspect a lot of people do. Pace around the office when I'm on a mobile phone. It's a natural thing to start doing that when you're on the track. You might wander, you might trip over something, you might slip or trip, you might wander onto another line. And Another little tip that, in fact, somebody on a PTS briefing came up with, and I've always thought was a good tip, is if you're in a situation where you don't want to accidentally pace around, before you answer the phone, put your hand on something. If there's a fence or a SPT or a tree or just something that you can put your hand on, you're a lot less likely to walk away from it than if your hand's in your pocket and you're not really paying attention because you're on the mobile phone. Making a call from the forefoot, that's what we just spoke about. Oh, you've got a red jumper on, I didn't even spot that. Yep, red jumper, that's not ideal when working on the track. And no safety footwear, look at that footwear, no safety footwear. Now, one thing in particular that came up in the comments and in the picture that we've just seen is the good old mobile phone. And as I said, it's not, we don't want to say it's completely outlawed because it brings a lot of useful uses, but it also brings a lot of risks. So definitely standing on the line side rather than on or near the line when on the mobile phone is the minimum. But we all have a role to play here. We all have a role to play in all of these safety things, but particularly, I feel, the role we can all play is particularly pronounced when it comes to mobile phones. Have the strength of character to intervene if somebody is behaving like they are in that picture. No matter how long they've been on the railway or how old they are and how little time you've been on the railway or how young you are or the other way around or whatever it is, have the strength of character to intervene. I'm not saying that on every occasion you won't get a mouthful, but if you do get a mouthful, you are the better person and not them. And it also means that you don't put yourself in a position where the next day you have to say to that person's wife, I could have intervened, but I didn't, and therefore they got run over by a train. It's as much about you as it is about them. Have the strength of character to intervene. You will be the better person for it. And have the strength of character if somebody approaches you, not to give them a mouthful of hassle, but to say, actually, it took a lot of balls for that person to come up to me and say, you know, you're making a mobile phone call in the forefoot, why don't you stand it on the line side? It took a lot of balls for them to do that. And they did that for my benefit. So actually, thanks very much, rather than a load of old mouthful. And isn't the world a better place for not giving somebody a load of mouthful because they've had the courage and the strength of character to look out for your safety when you've accidentally stood in the forefoot and made a mobile phone call? This applies to every element of safety in everything we do, in all walks of life, on the railway, in PTS, in everything. But I always think using a mobile phone while on the track is a real good opportunity for somebody to completely accidentally put themselves in a position of danger without realizing, and a really good opportunity for their mate to look out for them and say, whoa, hang on a minute, come and stand over here. Have the strength of character. Right, another opportunity for you in the comments, other things that may, oh, hang on a second, no, what are we doing here? Other things that may affect you. Oh, okay, yet more things. So we talked about earphones, that's good. We talked about hoods and hats and woolly hats and balaclavas covering ears. Again, if it covers ears with big woolly parts, then it's almost certainly not a good idea. If it's something less woolly, like a hoodie, then you might find that having your hoodie up makes you less cold, less wet, more able to detect approaching trains. Only you can judge. But be prepared to justify it afterwards. Ear defenders we've already talked about. Ear defenders only if your protection system allows it, and it is part of the system that somebody with a competence higher than PTS has set up and has told you you can wear ear defenders. This is the replacement for your hearing. And it's probably this person will stand behind you who isn't wearing ear defenders and will tap you on the shoulder when a train is coming. Or some bits of really impressive track equipment have cut-offs that somebody standing further away can cut the machine off, and then you know when the machine cuts off, that at least could be because a train is approaching and so you move out the way. But crucially, somebody's got to set that system up for you, and PTS alone will not allow you to wear ear defenders. Sunglasses, that was mentioned in the comments, well done. We'll use caution for those before we use them, and we'll make sure we're wearing them for the right reason, the reason that's going to improve our ability to see or hear trains approaching. Right, so we've talked so much now about when a train is approaching, so let's look at this. When a train approaches, or if your protection system is a lookout, because that's a common one, when the warning is given, when the lookout gives the warning. And I'm not going to get bogged down in methods for lookouts to give warnings. You will be told if the thing happens that you're told is going to happen when the lookout gives the warning, or if the protection system is that you become aware of a train approaching. This is what we will do. Immediately move to a position of safety from all lines. Remember, we had that discussion earlier about if it's in a station area where the lines fan out, or if it is on a double track, for example, we will move to a position of safety from all lines. Our attention will be distracted by this one train approaching. We don't want to get hit by a train approaching on a different line. You don't know which line of a fan of lines the train is going to go on. You cannot know, so we will stand clear of all of them. I know we mentioned at the start that heritage railways are primarily single lines, but again, we have double lines and more lines than double in station areas, and there are some heritage railways that are more than single lines. And a definite risk when you're working on the line and there's more than one line is that a train approaches on the line nearest to you, you stand in a position of safety, the train goes past, and instinctively you walk back onto the track and you haven't noticed a train on the other line, and you step out behind a train. So we will hopefully not have that. We will move immediately to a position of safety from all lines. Oh, the word immediately is a key word here. Even if we can see the train and it's 40 seconds away, we will not say to ourselves, aha, I only need to be in a position of safety for 10 seconds, so I can carry on working for 30 seconds before I start to move. We will move immediately when we become aware of a train approaching. Any time that we waste is time that we are taking away from ourselves for falling over, dropping tools, things like that, getting into a position of safety. So we will move immediately, and we will place tools in a safe position, which is generally considered to be 6 feet or 2 meters away from the line. And that's for two reasons. One, so that they don't get swept up in the sort of air swoosh of the train. And two, so that none of your colleagues or yourself falls over them in trying to get to a position of safety themselves. Or at least if they do fall over, they're already 6 feet or 2 meters away from the line and hopefully moving away from it. Rather than if you leave something on a sleeper end or in the forefoot, where it could even damage the train, we will place tools in a safe position, at least 6 feet or 2 meters away from the line. And we will stand still. Because again, if you put yourself in the position of a train driver approaching and you see some people working on the line ahead of you, all you want at that moment in your entire life is to see them get off the track and get out the way and stand still in a position of safety. And standing still, looking at the train, gives the driver a good level of confidence that you've seen that he's approaching, you've moved, and you're now standing there, not getting distracted, waiting for the train to go past. If everyone's milling around on the line side to a driver, they might think, well, have they seen me or have they not? Are they just milling around because that's what they were doing anyway? And in a minute, one of them's going to walk out in front of the train. So we will move to a position of safety from all lines, 4 feet or 1.25 meters for lines up to 25 miles an hour and more. We will place tools in a safe position and we will stand still. And contrary to the photo, we'll have our high-vis vest done up. We will acknowledge the warning. The driver will blow the whistle. We will acknowledge the warning by holding one hand up in the air, nice and prominently, holding it still, and hopefully the driver will give us another little peep on the whistle just to say, yep, thank you very much. I've seen that you've put your hand up. We will not, like the person on the left-hand side of the photo, not acknowledge the train because we're too busy taking a photograph of it. Now, quite often in railways that I've been involved in, you might get a person who's been working on the line come into the office and say, oh, the driver on the 11 o'clock, he never whistled for us. And I go, all right, okay. And sometimes you get a driver come in and he goes, oh, when I was driving the 3 o'clock, the gang working at such and such didn't acknowledge the warning. And you go, you're all as bad as each other. So I always say, if you are a driver and you see people on the line, whistle prominently. And if you are a track member of staff and you're working on the line, acknowledge the warning prominently. Because if you do it really, really well and professionally, the other party will do it really, really well and professionally. And that means you'll do it more professionally and they will do it more professionally. And it will get better and better and better and better. But if you sort of give a half-hearted, little wave of the hand as the acknowledgement, then the driver's going to go, well, first of all, did he see me or not? And second of all, can I really be bothered to be looking out and doing whistles and things if they can't be bothered to do the warning? And I'm not saying people make that choice consciously, but I'm sure we'll all agree it is a human trait that if the other person doesn't play their part, we're less likely to play our part. So we all have a part to play, whichever side you're on, whether you're on the engine or on the track, prominent whistles, prominent acknowledgements of the warning, and the world will be a happier place for it. And then, as I said right at the start, we will stay in our position of safety until the train has gone past and we are sure that no other train is approaching. Try and keep this in your imagination. When you're in the position of safety, what could go wrong? The thing that could go wrong is there could be a second train, and being aware of the risk is the first step towards mitigating it. So we will stay in our position of safety until the train's gone past and we are sure no other train is approaching. If you're on a single line, you can be fairly sure that once the train has gone past, there won't be another train approaching. Anything more than that, there could potentially be a second train approaching. Now, no matter how many decent rules we have, there is always a possibility that we might get caught out. We might get caught out because we haven't seen a train approaching, or because the protection system has let us down, or for any number, or because we made a silly mistake, because we overestimated our ability or our sighting or how quickly we could walk or any of those things. And we don't ever want to get into this position, but here is what we will do if we accidentally find ourselves in this position. So if you are close to the minimum clearance, or not, and you cannot move further away, you must take the following precautions. Stand still and take a firm footing, because if you're closer to the train than 4 feet, there is going to be a bit of wind sweep as it goes past. Ensure your clothing is not loose or likely to flap. And if you turn your back to the train, you can gather your clothing in front of you, although I've just seen the 4th bullet point is stand firmly with your back against a wall. So we'll hold on to any structure or object within reach. That will help us stay still and stay upright and not fall over. If we're against a wall or a structure, we can press our back firmly against it, or to be fair, you could turn and face into it and press your front firmly against it. If you are unable to reach a position of safety, lie down immediately in the 6 foot or the cess. I don't know why it doesn't say or the cess there. Lie down immediately in the 6 foot or the cess where there are no obstructions, and ensure your clothing is not loose or likely to flap. And lying down is because a train is narrower at the bottom than it is at the top. Bit where the public get on and off, where the doors are, is wider than it is where the wheels are. So there is a little cavern of a relatively slightly more safe area if you are a lot shorter and lower down. Lie down, gather your clothing underneath you, and wait for the train to pass. Do not lie down in the 4 foot. See why it's important now that we know which words are 4 foot and 6 foot and cess. Do not lie down in the 4 foot. It will not work as nicely as it does in cartoons or films where the train goes over the top and you pop up out the back. There's all sorts of couplings and brake gear and dynamos and all sorts, dynamo belts, all sorts of things hanging down under the train. That will not end well. The 6 foot or the cess is the place to lie down. Hopefully, if we're in this scenario, and as long as we're wearing our high-vis clothing, the driver will see us, and there is a fairly decent chance that up to 25 miles an hour on a heritage railway, the train might well be able to stop. Stop because, first of all, it's obvious to the driver that we're not in a position of safety, and second of all, it might look to the driver like we've just passed out or died or had a heart attack or whatever, and the driver might stop. And when he finds out that we were just caught out, he might have some choice words to say to us, and we might well deserve them. But at least we're safe. And we've got this backup method, which is only in an emergency, not to be part of your plan of what to do if caught out. And if you're watching this as a member of footplate crew and you see somebody doing this, then please try your best to stop, because they're not in a position of safety. Little thing about tunnels, and we talked about tunnels earlier, and we said railways that had tunnels that you couldn't see all the way through and see enough sighting on the other side to make sure you had enough time to be in a position of safety on the other side. You will probably, or almost certainly, need a protection system before you enter the tunnel. So can sighting be maintained before entering the tunnel and throughout? Is it nice and straight with clear visibility? Can a position of safety be obtained within the warning time? So can you walk through the tunnel and be out the other side for at least 10 seconds before the train approaches, based on how far you can see in front of you and behind you? Because if not, then some sort of protection system, and in fact I've let slip here signal protection, but some sort of protection system is definitely required. Because there's no excuse otherwise, is there? There's no excuse. There's no way to justify how you are protected or how you are protecting your staff if you can't comply with them being in a position of safety 10 seconds before a train approaches. All railways that have tunnels will almost certainly have specific procedure for those lengthy tunnels. Right, getting close to the end now, I promise. If you are on the track and you see something wrong with a train, so in the comments again, let's see what you can think of that you might see, and you might be the first person to see, you might be our first defence here, something wrong with a train. As we all know, all of our rolling stock is very, very old. It's not modern standard rolling stock. Most of it has been in preservation longer than it was in mainline use. It is very possible for things to break and go wrong. And of course, signalmen and station staff and all those sorts of things will be looking at trains as they pass. But if we're working out on the line, it might very well be us to be the first person to see something wrong with a passing train. So in the comments, everyone join in. Things you can think of that you might be the first person to see and need to react to that is something wrong with a passing train. I hope that... Whoops. Yep, sorry. Yep, okay, and this could be at a station or it could be out in the middle of nowhere, but if you're working on the track, you are in a better position than anyone to see what might be wrong with a passing train. I'm really hoping we're going to get some comments here. If not, I shall have to tell you what the answers are. In many cases, things that you can, or examples of things that you can see wrong with a passing train are written in rule books, and certainly not exhaustive lists, because of course the list can never be exhaustive, but certainly examples. Oh my goodness me, thank you very much. Comments are starting to come through. It does take a good 20 or 25 seconds after I've said something for it to be broadcast out, so I have to, make up something to talk about in between. So while that's happening, Tom has commented that he has movement sensors in the tunnels that reverts the protecting signals to danger. Amazing. So there might be all sorts of, I presume that's a sort of anti-trespass mechanism. There might be all sorts of local equipment that will need to be considered in your protection systems. So brilliant. Now, things that might be wrong with a passing train are starting to come through, and I'll tell you what the next slide is going to be. It's going to be things that are wrong with the infrastructure, so feel free to comment on that while you're waiting if you want to. So thank you very much to both Richie and Graham. Oh no, sorry, they're different answers. So Richie, door handle turned. Yes, on the majority of heritage rolling stock, the door handle is horizontal when it's locked, and other than horizontal when it isn't. It gets a bit more difficult on guards doors and doors that open inwards and things like that, but your local knowledge will tell you what position a door handle needs to be in to be locked. And of course, if it's not locked, there's a very high risk that somebody might lean on it, especially on a heritage railway where people like to hang by the window, but not out of it, obviously. There's a high risk that somebody might lean on the door, it'll come open and they'll fall out. Definitely an incident that a heritage railway does not want to have. So if you see a door that is not properly locked, that is definitely something you should react to, and we will see in a moment the reaction that we take. Graham has elaborated on that with door open. Yes, exactly. If the door is actually open, then it's definitely not locked and it's already come open. That's definitely something to react to. Something falling off. Yes, signs of insecure loads, particularly on non-passenger rolling stock. If there's a load that is about to fall off, or even if it is just part of a passenger vehicle that isn't properly attached, dragging along. Missing tail light, that's a good one. What does it mean if there's no tail light? I'm not going to wait 25 seconds for you to put the answer in the comments. Answer is, it means the train is divided. That's the first thing that it means. It does not mean that somebody's forgotten to put a tail lamp on. It means the train is divided. Definitely something to report, as we'll see in a minute. James Negus, sorry if that's the wrong pronunciation of your name. Smoke from an axle box or fire from an undercarriage. Yes, absolutely. Smoke from an axle box, hot axle box. You can tell it from the smell, the burning smell. You can tell it if you see smoke. In extremis, certainly if there's dragging brakes, you can see if there's Catherine wheels round the wheels. And somebody else, who I'm sorry, the comments have gone too far now, commented wheel locked. So the opposite is when the wheel is not turning at all and it's skating along the track. That's very dangerous. It'll develop a flat in the wheel if it starts going, and it'll damage the wheel, which is expensive, but also if it starts going round again, the wheel will no longer be round. That could damage the track, it could damage the coach, it could eventually potentially lead to a derailment. It definitely makes it difficult for the wheel to go over sets of points. If you have a look at the Hatherley derailment in about 2005, and I think we saw one even more recently where a wheel that was locked. Where did I see it? Oh, Llangennech in South Wales, where the oil train caught fire. Yes, the Merco petroleum train. I'm pretty sure that was a a wheel not going round and it caused a flat, and then it tried to go over a set of points, and because of the new profile of the wheel, because it had been worn flat, it wouldn't go over the points properly. Fire, yes, exactly. Anything that's on fire, and that could be the outside or the inside, especially on railways where we have buffet cars with gas boilers and things like that in. Anything that's on fire, extremely, extremely dangerous. The sort of air slip on a train that's moving along when it's on fire will cause the fire to spread extremely, extremely quickly. Have a look at the Taunton Sleeper fire. When was that? 1980 something, possibly? I can't remember. But yes, fire. What else have we got here? Trailing wires attached from Ruth. Yep, absolutely brilliant. Trailing wires. Something's fallen off. Trailing wire could get caught in anything, could rip more equipment off the bottom of the coach. All those sorts of things. What have we got here? I think that might be about it for something wrong with the train. You've all done extremely well, and there's lots of infrastructure things here which we'll talk about in a second. So let's see which ones I got. A door open or not properly closed, or an insecure load. Yep, well done, you got all of those. A vehicle on fire or a hot axle box. Yep, you got that. The driver sounding the train in distress signal. Oh, we didn't think of that one, did we? The driver sounding the train in distress signal, which varies from railway to railway. Think now to yourself, what is the train in distress signal on your railway? If you don't know what it is, look it up, because you will look pretty silly if the train in distress signal is given and you don't recognise what it is. The driver or guard displaying a red hand signal. Now, the driver and guard are two people that should definitely be able to stop the train if they needed to, and if they've lost the ability to stop the train, this is definitely something extremely serious. Or if one is trying to signal to the other to stop the train, you could be the first person to see that. Especially useful if you see it before the train passes you, because you might become instrumental in stopping the train, as we will see in a moment. Right, so we said we would move on to problems with the infrastructure, and you've done very well in suggesting things for this slide, so thank you very much. What have we got here? Damaged retaining walls. Yes, absolutely. Or any sort of line-side earthwork or structure, retaining walls, embankments, cuttings, anything like that. Trees moving by themselves. Get your red petticoats. Yes, exactly. If you see that scene from the Railway Children with the trees moving very uprightly down the embankment, then that's definitely something to be concerned about. What have we got? Broken fish plates, or yes, or any form of broken track, unless you yourself have competence to know that it is okay. Any sort of broken rail, broken fish plate, broken equipment in that respect, definitely be concerned. We will come on to what we have to do in all these circumstances in a moment. What have we got? Landslip, yes, that's excellent. Multiple loose keys or clips, yes, again, your local knowledge will hopefully indicate to you what the normal condition of keys and clips is, but certainly if lots of them are missing or more than a few, definitely something to be concerned about. Strange wear on the railhead, yes, I mean that's quite a technical skill to judge, but certainly if it looks wrong to you, take action, because it is always better to take action when it's not required than it is to not have taken action and then have to explain why you didn't afterwards. I promise you, if you think something is unsafe and you stop a train, the company will back you up. And I'm saying that on behalf of every single heritage railway, which I have no right to say, but I'm saying it anyway. If you think that something is unsafe and you stop the train, the company will back you up. As long as you're not doing it every 5 minutes of every day, or things that you've already been told about are perfectly safe, always better to act than not to have acted and then have to explain why. Access gates left unlocked, yes. Vehicles foul of the clearance. Oh, I see, sorry, like rail vehicles foul of clearance points, yes. Or I thought you meant road vehicles near the line. Yes, that would be another good one too. Livestock on the track. Oh, Ruth, you win the prize for what the next slide is going to be about livestock on the track. So let's see what the bullet points are on this. A track defect, so we generalised, or sorry, that's generalised into lots of comments that came up there. We didn't think about hot weather. Hot weather is particularly a time when track defects could occur. You get buckling if the rail tries to expand too much, or even on tight corners, the whole sort of outside of the corner sort of moves out a little bit. You can also get in cold weather where the track tries to contract and there's not enough slack in it to contract. The opposite, you can get rail breaks. A flood. Oh, we didn't get that one either. A flood. The reason a flood is dangerous is because it can wash the ballast away or it can wash floating debris onto the line. I know we've all seen brilliant pictures from 60 years ago where a steam train goes through floodwater that's 6 feet deep. Let's not do that. There are risks, and perhaps we weren't as conscious of them then as we are now, or perhaps our risk appetite was a little bit different then to what it is now. But certainly a flood has the potential to be extremely dangerous until it's been looked into and it's been established that actually the circumstances of this flood are not as dangerous, and somebody with more competence than us will make that decision. A fire, well, we talked about trains on fire. We didn't think about line-side fires. Actually, we missed quite a lot here, didn't we? Line-side fires, definitely the potential to endanger trains. An obstruction, such as a tree on the line or a car on the line. I think trees was said in the comments. That was really good. Car on the line, another thing that obviously could happen. Animals on or near the line, or on the line side, because of course animals can move around. So even if they're on the line side, they have the potential to be dangerous. And Ruth gets the gold prize for that, because here is a slide about animals on the line. So animals on the line, obviously there are some animals that we worry about and some that don't. Deers, foxes, don't worry, they live on the railway line and they're quite nervous. They will move when a train comes along. Don't worry, unless there's a million foxes and they're all sitting on the line. Don't worry about deers, foxes, things like that. Also, harsh though it may sound, they're not going to endanger the train. It might be a bit unpleasant, but they're probably going to move out the way. They live on the railway line. They're always there. Don't worry. Field mice, wood lice, hedgehogs, don't worry. We'll squash those. Horses, cows, definitely obstructions, as they often don't move out the way. Hitting a cow is unlikely to kill it, but it will seriously injure it and put it in a lot of distress, so it's not very fair to the cow. It's also pretty distressing for the crew to have, bits of bloody cow all over the front of the train. So we will try at all costs to avoid hitting cows, horses, hippopotamuses, anything that's enormous. If you've got a railway next to a zoo, they will all be considered obstructions, and bear in mind that even if they're not on the line at the moment, it's very easy for them to walk onto the line. Sheep are always a difficult one. Sheep are in the middle. A bit of common sense has to be applied here. One sheep in an open area, not a problem. One sheep in a tightly enclosed area where it can't escape, more of a problem. Or many sheep is a bit of a problem. Sheep do try and move out the way, but they're like herd animals. If there's lots of them, although the front one might move out the way, the back one might not have realised what's going on. If you're interested on the main line, it's 6. The distinction between a small number of sheep and a big number of sheep. If it's 6, it's time to get concerned. Fewer than 6, not time to get concerned. Obviously, I can't list absolutely every single animal. You have to make a decision based on the risk to the animal and the risk to the train if there are animals on the line. So well done, Ruth, for coming up with animals. Now let's look at what we're going to do. We've looked at all these things to do with things that could be wrong with a train, things that could be wrong with a track, animals on the line. We need to know what to do. And bear in mind that as a PTS holder, we might not also happen to be a train driver or a guard or a signalman. The only job in the world that we might do is PTS because we do vegetation clearance or because we do surveying or whatever it is. So never take for granted that somebody will have the railway operational knowledge to know what to do. Let's make it very clear. The first thing is we will find a telephone, and that could be a signal telephone or a line-side telephone, or it could be our mobile telephone, which obviously we will move into the position of safety before we use, or it could be any other means that you've got of contacting the signalman or whoever the appropriate person is that controls trains on your railway if you don't have a signalman. And the very, very first thing that we will say, and I know you all saw this coming, is this is an emergency call. And I know this is a bit modern and a bit mainline, but it's really important. I would say this is more important on a heritage railway where we're even less likely to have experience of dealing with emergencies. We're even less likely to expect one to occur because heritage railways are what we do for fun at the weekend. They're not places where we go to cause real serious danger. And you imagine if you pick up the phone and the first thing that somebody says to you on the other end is this is an emergency call, you're definitely going to put the crossword to one side and go, right, of all the things I need to concentrate on at the moment, this is the thing I need to concentrate on. If the train gets delayed or I don't answer the other phone or something else happens, it doesn't matter. These are the keywords that mean this is all I care about at the moment. This is an emergency call. Say it now out loud in the room here with me. This is an emergency call, because it takes some courage to say this is an emergency call. And I want to hear you all say it, because I want to know that you can get those words out of your mouth. Otherwise, I think you're going to be afraid to say it, or you're going to think, is this really an emergency? I don't want to look silly if I say this is an emergency call and it isn't. Like I said earlier, always better to act than to have to explain why you didn't act after the incident. Say this is an emergency call, and if 5 seconds later it transpires it isn't, no harm done. But if you don't say this is an emergency call, you say, hi, it's Danny here, and the person on the other end of the phone says, hang on a minute, Danny, I'm just dealing with something, and before you can say anything, they've put the phone on the desk, and in the background you can hear, in the case of a signal box, levers moving or footsteps moving around or whatever, and you're thinking, no, I had something really important that I needed to say, and now you're not listening. Well, you should have said, this is an emergency call. Any of those things that were on the previous 3 slides, damage to infrastructure, something wrong with the train, significant animals on the line, all those things start with this is an emergency call. And then where do they go? So they start with this is an emergency call. You will then give your name and your job title and your location. This is Danny Scroggins, the track patrolman, speaking from the 6 mile post, or speaking from such and such a station, or whatever it's going to be. Those are the next things that you will give. You will then say what has happened and where, and you will use official proper location names in order to describe it. So you will say there is a car on the line at the 6 mile post, or by such and such a station. You will not say there is a car on the line by the oak tree. You know, the one by the corner next to the field where the pond is? Because I guarantee you there'll be more than one corner with a tree and a pond, and I guarantee you the signalman will be thinking of the other one. Official, proper mileposts, names of structures, an exacta location as you possibly can. If you require the emergency services, say what emergency services are required. Just because you have said somebody's got a broken leg, do not presume that that will mean the person who you're speaking to will call you an ambulance. Because it would be easy for the person on the other end of the phone to say, oh my goodness me, there's a person with a broken leg. Well, I'm sure Danny will have called an ambulance. No. And then you both think each other have called the ambulance. Be really clear. Remember also that 2 seconds ago, this person who you're speaking to was doing the crossword, and this is all brand new, very concerning information to him. You can see it in front of you. You've got the perfect picture of what's going on because you can see it with your eyes. All this other person's got is what you're describing after all their adrenaline has gone through the roof when you said this is an emergency call. So be explicit. Say what emergency services are required. Don't be afraid of being too explicit. Always use the phonetic alphabet. So if it is by I can't think of an example, but if it's by something that needs spelling, we will use the phonetic alphabet. We'll Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, that sort of thing. We must be accurate. We must keep the message as brief as possible, even though we've got quite a lot of bullet points to include, and we will try and make it as clear as possible. So we're only interested in facts, who you are, what has happened, and what do you want to take place next. Always use the phrase blocked if the line is blocked. Never not clear. Why not clear? What's wrong with not clear? That's perfectly good use of English. What's the problem with not clear? So I'm not going to wait 25 seconds for the answers to come through, but I'm sure you're all saying that at the moment you say the word not, the phone could crackle or the other person could not be listening and they hear the line is crackle clear. And they go, oh, brilliant, the line is clear, thanks very much. Whereas it's very difficult for them to misinterpret the word blocked. Right. A couple of things mentioned in the comments about what 3 words. I have to say, I'm not a big fan of what 3 words. I think that's a dangerous road to go down. Have official mileposts and names of structures on your railway and use those. And another day, if you want to, I'll have a very long discussion about why I'm not a fan of what 3 words when it comes to describing emergencies on railway lines. Ask for your message to be repeated back to ensure that it has been understood. And it doesn't matter, again, who's the most senior or who's been on the railway the longest. If you're reporting it, it is your responsibility to get the message across. It's the other person's responsibility to receive it, of course, and hopefully they will read it back without you asking them to. But remember, as I said a second ago, this is a big shock to the person who's receiving this call. They were doing the crossword and suddenly they hear the words, "This is an emergency call," and something disastrous has happened. And they will be thinking of 1,000,001 other things. Hopefully, if they've got their wits about them, they'll have been making notes with the pen on the pad by the phone on the booking desk or whatever it is. But you ask for the message to be repeated back, because I would bet you a fair pound that in most circumstances, if I picked a moment on a heritage railway to ring the signalman, say this is an emergency call, and then reel off all these bullet points, and then ask them to repeat it back, there will be something that they have missed. It also enables them to sort of paraphrase the what has happened. They're not going to read it to you exactly word for word because they haven't got it written down. And then paraphrasing it might highlight where they've misunderstood it or might confirm where they have understood it. So you might say the train has derailed. You haven't specified whether that's one wheel or all the coaches. And the readback might be one wheel has derailed or the whole train has derailed. And you can say, oh, no, that's wrong. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. Actually, it's whatever it really is. It's very easy in an emergency to go too fast, to panic, to forget that you can see what's going on and it is anything but obvious to the person who you're describing it to. And you must stay in contact until you are told that nothing more is required. You must not just gabble all this out and then slam the phone down until the person who you're reporting it to, and you're reporting it to them for a reason because you want them to act and you want their help, tells you that nothing more is required. And we will not endanger ourselves. The company will not thank you for putting yourself in a position of danger to try to be a hero. And that's a really difficult thing sometimes. And sometimes there have been railway incidents where either railway staff or emergency service personnel have put themselves in positions of danger in order to respond to a situation. And afterwards, I hate to say it, but we have to sort of grudgingly say, oh, well done, you did a good job there. Where actually what we want to say is, no, you did a terrible job. We do not want you to put yourself in a position of danger. We do not want 2 casualties instead of 1. There was an incident some years ago on a heritage railway where a person in a mobility scooter fell off a platform. They drove it too close to the edge. The scooter fell off the end of the platform. And the member of railway staff on the platform on a heritage railway turned and walked away from where the incident was. And there was criticism because the person didn't go and help. But the person who turned and walked away was going into the office to phone the signalman to block the line, to make sure that the person in the mobility scooter didn't get run over by a train, and to make sure that they didn't endanger themselves by jumping onto the track after it. That was the correct thing to do. Another example that happens from time to time on heritage railways is children fall down the gap. If a child falls down the gap and you're a member of staff, the first thing to do is not to jump down and try and rescue them. They've already fallen. They're not going to get any more injured by falling. The thing that's going to injure them now is if the train moves. So your number one priority is to make sure the train doesn't move. Even if it's already at a stand, you can go inside and you can pull the cord, you can talk to the guard, you can talk to the driver, you can do all those things, and that person who's fallen down the gap is not going to get any worse. And then you can come back and help them jump out if they haven't already jumped out or been helped out by other members of the public by then. The correct thing to do is to stop the situation getting any worse. Right, I'm not going to get into a big argument about what 3 words. You can comment on it all you like, but we can talk about that one another day if you really want to. Now, it might be that the person who you telephone in this emergency scenario, because you've observed something wrong with the train or something wrong with the infrastructure, or a massive herd of cows on the line, is actually too late. The train's already in the section and there's nothing they can do. And it might come down to you to stop the train yourself. Or it might be that there is no means of contacting the signalman because there's no mobile phone signal or because you're not near a phone or any of those other things. You need to know how to stop the train in an emergency. And by day, pretty universally, we will do this by using a red flag or raising both arms above our head. If you happen to have a red flag, that is preferable, but let's face it, most of us don't carry one of those around. But 2 arms up in the air is a universal, across the board, means the driver will do everything he can when he sees you like that to stop the train. And by night, hopefully, if we're on the train, we can use the communication cord or we can hold our arm out horizontally from the train. In most railways, the arm held out horizontally from the train is the stop indication, check what it is in your rulebook, or if there isn't a sign, then let's have one and let's put it in the rulebook. And finally, by night or in other times of poor visibility, by displaying a red light or any other light waved vigorously. And certainly there have been cases of people using head torches or even mobile phone torches to wave them violently at a train. And I can't remember when it happened, or even the location, I'm afraid, but there was definitely a case a few years ago where a footbridge fell down and a railway member of staff, this was on the main line, not on a heritage railway, waved their head torch at the driver, and the driver did see it and applied the brake. He still hit the footbridge, but at least he applied the brake slightly earlier than he would have otherwise done. So any light waved vigorously will be a stop signal as well. And finally, in our PTS briefing, last little word on security. And if you like Blackadder, then security is not a dirty word. You should remain alert for anything suspicious or of anyone behaving suspiciously on or near railway premises. And just because we're a heritage railway does not, unfortunately, absolve us from the need to maintain security on the railway line. What will we do if we see anyone behaving suspiciously or we find anything suspicious? If possible, we'll check that the person is authorised to be there. And that does not mean we have to go abruptly. We just have to say, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" And they will say, "Oh yes, I'm just doing this," or "No, I'm not," or you'll pretty quickly get an impression from them, from both what they say and from their manner, whether they're supposed to be there or not. If you have doubts, report the matter to the duty officer or whatever the person in charge, responsible officer is on your railway. Report it to them, take advice, and see how they would like you to handle it. Or if you find or see anything suspicious that you feel may endanger the passage of trains, then this counts as one of those obstructions that we talked about earlier. We will call the signal box and arrange for trains to be stopped. We will, of course, start the phone call with, "This is an emergency call," what our name, location, and job title is, what has happened, what action we want to be taken, if the emergency services are required, and then get it all repeated back. And we will not touch any suspicious objects. And that is the end. Congratulations, you've reached the end of the personal track safety briefing. I hope you enjoyed it. Now's your last opportunity to ask any questions if you want to, either about PTS in general or about the safety and compliance and SMS and briefing side of it, and I'll do my best to answer them. But other than that, you've been a fantastic audience. Thank you very much for taking part in the comments. It's been really good. This is the end of the workshop, unless any other questions or comments come in. The next workshop, next SMS workshop, is 2 weeks from today. We're on a 2-weekly thing at the moment. It's nearly killing me. The 14th of September, which will be the third and final part of the track safety elements of the SMS workshop program. And we will talk about how what we did 2 weeks ago in the brainstorm and what we did today in terms of the briefing all crystallizes down into what is probably going to be quite a chunky SMS document. But I don't apologize for the fact that it's chunky, because being on the track is a significant risk. Remember, we said right at the start, normally on railways we make the thing safe and then we move the train. When it comes to staff working on the line, in many cases the staff are on the line, the train is coming come what may, and we hope that the people move out the way before the train arrives. So I don't think there are any final queries or comments. Unless any come through in the next few seconds, I shall be saying good night. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. If you haven't already, then I strongly recommend that you download the Rail Days app. It is now available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. We haven't publicly sort of promoted it yet, but we will be doing shortly. I'm just waiting for the last few moments to get the search facility in the top, and then it's going to be all systems go on promoting the Rail Days app. So thank you very much indeed for tuning in. I think that's going to be all from me, so I hope you've all enjoyed it and it's all been useful. Good night.